Oh, ooh, I'm not going back, better than before. I learned from the past, forgiveness opened that door. I got what I wanted, my life is much brighter now. I'll tell you my story, how to get an abundant life.
What's going on, good people? Thank you for joining us for another episode of Build Your Fort. Today is one of our season 2 episodes. I have the pleasure of speaking with a good friend of mine, Miss Olivia Westbrooks of Olivia Westbrooks Interiors. She is an award-winning interior designer. She's going to tell you a little bit about that. But Olivia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, Lithius, thank you for having me today. It's been a while.
It's been too long, and we got to do better at that. And I'm so excited to get good friends like you to come on and talk with us and to share their story into entrepreneurship, and who else to better tell us how she's made it. What have you been up to?
Oh my goodness. And how she's still trying to make it work. Making it is a everlasting journey and a process. I don't know that it's a destination,
For sure.
But I've been good. I've been really good. Lots of changes over the last couple of years due to COVID, just like everybody else. But let's see. So the last time you and I spoke, or I saw you, was it pre-baby number one?
It was pre-baby number one. Look, we knew each other before you got married, actually.
Right.
So, but the last time we spoke was before baby number one, and it's a pleasure watching her grow virtually.
Yes.
And now baby number two, and watching her grow and how they're turning to little versions of you and Michael. It's amazing. I love seeing it.
It's hilarious. They definitely keep things interesting around here, to say the least. For sure.
Yeah. So what's happening in your world and the business of interior design? What's going on with you? I know you've had a little, you've had a little roller coaster going on.
I did. It's almost like what's not happening. I feel like everything over the last couple of years, it almost happened so quickly, but didn't at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense. I feel that's kind of like COVID timing. It feels like time is moving quickly, slowing down at the same time. But if you want to go way, way back, we can take it back to when you and I first met, which I believe at that time I had my first business, right?
You did.
And Live by Design. Yeah. So I've been in the interior design industry now for almost 20 years, which is amazing to hear me say that, or to hear myself say that out loud, because it doesn't feel like it's been that long. But I started back in 2004 after graduating from LSU with a bachelor's degree in interior design. And I knew that I didn't want to stay in Louisiana because I didn't think that they had the types of big projects that I wanted. And interior design has come a long way. Louisiana now, Baton Rouge area, New Orleans area is booming in the industry. But at the time, I didn't feel like it's where I wanted to be. And a lot of my friends who were graduating were moving to Houston. So I was like, I don't want to go there. I've seen y'all for the last 4 or 5 years. I want to go somewhere else. So I went the opposite direction. And at the time, I had a cousin who lived here. And she said, come on over. You can come and stay with me until you get your bearings. And that's what I did. And I was here for about 6 months before I landed my first job. And I recently had to write my bio for an ASID spotlight that they recently did for me. And as I was writing my bio, it made me recount my experience, my first interior design experience. It was with an architect.
Mm-hmm.
His name is George Reese, but he was Herman Russell's architect. Are you familiar with Herman Russell?
Am I familiar with Herman Russell? Come on. I live right around the corner from the Reese Center, which is the corporate office of Herman Russell's, which is now want to call it like an institute for entrepreneurs. So yes, very, very familiar with it.
So at the time, I was fresh out of college from Louisiana. I didn't really understand the gravity of being in the same room with him, but the architect that I worked for designed a lot of his multifamily developments. And I remember one time he sent me with a set of plans over to Herman's office, Mr. Russell's office, to have a meeting with him and someone he was trying to buy property from. And I sat in that room. And now that I think about it, I'm like, wow, you were in the midst of greatness and you didn't even realize it, you know?
Yes, indeed. So for those of you who don't know, Herman Russell is one of the first Black successful builders here in Atlanta who started at very, very meager beginnings. And he's built Atlanta. In my opinion, he has built Atlanta. So many of the buildings that you see throughout the city, Herman Russell has had something to do with it. And that legacy of his continues on today with other people that he has brought up in the industry of architect and building.
That's right. That's right. And developing too. You know, like you said,
developing
the landscape of Atlanta. And he was also a huge part of the civil rights movement in Atlanta as well. So knowing what I know now about him, you know, had I known that back then, I've probably been at that table with my mouth wide open, just like, you know, but that was a wonderful experience. I worked there for about 6 months because I quickly realized working with architects was not my jam. Right.
Okay.
I wanted to be in a less rigid environment. And that's when Pineapple House Interior Design called me and asked me if I wanted to come and interview with them. And that was my first big interior design job. I worked with them for 4.5 to 5 years before I was fired. And we could get into that.
Okay.
Because I'm talking about the roller coaster, right? There was a roller coaster there.
Right.
I'm just going to give you like a brief history and then we can delve into the details. Before I was fired,
Okay.
but that firing prompted me to start my first business. And that was Live by Design, which is when we met. This is back in...
Exactly. And I remember, and I was like, Olivia, I've got this magazine. I need somebody to put an ad in it. It's free. Just come on, send me some designs. And yeah, it was a birth of many good things for both of us during that time.
It was. It was so funny. What I remember about that experience with the magazine was I interviewed, I don't remember his name, but he owned a boutique, a furnishings boutique here. Do you remember this?
Yes, I remember. You know, he was so mad at me. Do you know he was really upset?
Listen, and we thought we were doing something good for the people, right? We're trying to bring great design to everybody because his boutique was a little higher end. He had beautiful things. But just to give you all some context, we did an article about how to get this look for less. But at the time, didn't realize that as a business owner, he probably saw that we were trying to undercut him, which was not the intention at all. No, we were just trying to help people. You know, but I thought about that story the other day. I don't know why. I just started laughing.
And every now he's still in my phone, so he's got the same phone number, believe it or not. And every now and then there's because you know now I'm in real estate, and so there is a very good contact of mine that does home inspections that has the same name, David, in my phone. His name is David. I'm not going to mention his name, but his name is David as well. I said, hey, David, how you doing? Can you do an inspection for me tomorrow? Blah, blah, blah. And he says, I think you have the wrong person.
You might need
and then
that phone number.
No, I mean, he's still a good person to have contact with. You just never know. We just kind of ruffled his feathers that day. And remember, he actually let us use his boutique for
He'll use things out of his shop for installs too. He's amazing, great guy, great product. It's all good. You know, it's fun. Looking back now as a business.
Does he remember?
I don't know. I've never talked to him about it. I've just left that where it was, you know?
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's go on.
Yes, okay. So it was just a little trip down memory lane. So I had my business. I started my business after being fired, had some opportunity to start my own business. And listen, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I never went out telling people I'm going to own my own business one day. That's just it's not what I saw growing up. You know, I had an aunt who had like a bakery business on the side. She was a teacher and she baked cakes on the side, right? But that was really the only representation in my close circle of family of entrepreneurship that I saw, right? Everybody else had a 9-to-5. So what are you taught when you're growing up? You go to school, you go to elementary school, middle school, high school, you go to college, you go get you a good job, you get you a good man, you have some children, you buy the house, and you live the American dream.
Yes.
And there was, girl, go own your own business.
Never. And that is something that is so true in the generation before us that came down. That's what they did. And I preach this all the time. My mother worked for the phone company. She retired from the phone company. Where did I end up working? The phone company.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was going to retire. Remember, I was telling you this story, and I was just this short of full retirement. And that right there taught me that, you know what? Doing a side hustle is not going to do it, because these people will let you go at any moment. And you've got to be able to fend for yourself. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get you off track, but go ahead.
You said that because when we were discussing earlier, remember I said, let's circle back to that. That's really good, because that's the same experience that I had when I was working for that company, right? So it was, gosh, in the heat of the recession, and you weren't in the building industry at that time, but it was a very difficult time for anybody who was related to anything real estate, you know, the housing market, the building market, the interior design market. Like, we really suffered. And so they were laying people off left and right. They had to survive, which I understand. And at the time, I signed a non-compete clause when I signed on.
Wow.
But when things started getting cut, like our healthcare got cut, our hours got cut, this got cut, I was like, okay, well, I have to do what I have to do to pay my bills. So I took projects on the side. I found out about it, got upset, which I understand. I understand all that now as a 40-year-old woman. But at 27, I'm like, I'm just trying to survive. And so I was fired from that job. And just like you said, you know, your experience with the phone company taught you that people are going to do what they need to do for their bottom line regardless. That's what that ultimately taught me. And that's what I always teach anybody that I mentor is, hey, listen, especially when you work for a company for a long period of time, I've seen people get other opportunities and they feel a certain type of way about leaving their job. They feel bad about it, you know? I tell them, hey, you have to run your life like these people run their businesses. You have to do what's best for your bottom line, what's best for your family, right? Because at the end of the day, they're going to do what's best for them. So you have to start treating yourself and your life like that too. And that's what that taught me. Moving forward, I didn't have a problem exiting one opportunity and getting into another. I'm like, hey, thank y'all so much. I'm grateful for everything that I learned. Bye.
Exactly. And you've got to do what is best for you. You said it so well, because the companies are going to do what's best for them, as they should, so that they can survive. And we have to get to the point to where we're not relying 100% on corporate America to give us all of our livelihood. If the pandemic has taught us nothing else, we know for sure that people have come up on the internet doing their own thing. Black businesses booming. And if you watch the trend, it's been happening for a while. You'll see everybody and anybody in corporate America that has products that touches Black America. They're doing everything they can to market to us at this point.
They are.
And I'm like, now you want to come around.
Right.
That's a whole nother story for a whole nother podcast. But the truth of the matter is that we are valuable. What we have to offer is valuable. What Olivia Westbrooks Interiors has to offer is valuable. And we have to believe in that and make sure that we strive for getting what it is that we deserve.
That's right. I agree with you wholeheartedly. The thing is, it's getting to the point where, like you said, you believe that you are valuable, right?
Yes.
So learning when you're younger that you go and you get this good job, this 9 to 5, you stay there until you retire, you're really conditioned to perform for other people. And now your worth is based on how they see you or what they think of you, right? So it's challenging to shift from that mindset to, well, I know I'm worthy, right? And regardless of what you think, I know the work that I do is great. And I know that I can do this for myself. It takes a great deal of courage to get to that point, because that's not how we're conditioned as kids. We're conditioned to perform for other people, right? As opposed to doing things for ourselves.
Yes. And that's something you mentioned in your questionnaire that I sent over to you. You know, one of the things that you said you want to cover was self-improvement and unleashing all of the toxic things that we're taught as kids in society and the media in order to align with our authentic selves and live a life that is truly our own. I'm like, yo, this is going to be a most amazing podcast, because she's touching on all the things that I love about entrepreneurship and self-development and growth. So let's talk about that. When you say unleashing all of the toxic things that were taught as a kid,
Well, really is unlearning, right? Because so let's say,
unlearning. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So let's say, for instance, I went to Catholic school. I grew up in Catholic school, but this is true for any type of school, right? We are taught to conform, right? I was taught to be a perfectionist growing up,
Mm.
right? Get all A's, sit in your chair upright, your uniform has to be pressed, and all of that does not help us to be comfortable with who we truly are, because we're
Yes.
trying to conform to a certain image that either society tells us that we need to be, or the nuns at your school tell you that you need to be, Christ-like. And so unlearning all of that and getting to a point where you are comfortable in your own skin is tough. It's a long
It is.
road. And I think it's an eternal road, unless you're Buddha or you're one of the extremely enlightened people walking this earth, it's a lifelong journey doing that. And it's uncomfortable. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, it takes a lot of work and really courage. Courage is my word for the year, right? I went to see Oprah a couple
Okay.
years ago, right before the pandemic hit. She said every year she has a word for herself. The word for myself this year is courage, because it does take courage to stand in front of a group of people and say, this is who the hell I am, whether you like it or not, especially if you're taught to be a people pleaser like I am.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I had no clue how much alike you and I are all these years. I had no clue. I spent from second grade to ninth grade in private school.
Yeah.
Christian private school, where they practice corporal punishment when they paddled you, and where, you had, when an A wasn't good enough, an A+ is what you need to be striving for. So like you, I went through many, many years of perfectionism, or what I thought was perfection, and it really wasn't, but coming up thinking that I had to be perfect. And then when I went to public school, it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. I wouldn't wish that on any kid going into the 10th grade high school after spending 9+ years in private school. But to my mother's defense, she asked me, what do you want to do? And me being a people pleaser, I know how my mother struggled. I know how she struggled to give me the best of everything. I know that she was working her butt off to keep me in private school, and I knew that it was expensive. And so I said in my 10th grade mind at that time, you know what, I want to do something that's going to make it easier on my mom. If that means that she does not have to write that check every month for private school, I'm going to go ahead and agree and say, I'm going to go to public school. And that was part of that people pleasing thing. I wanted to make sure that she was okay. I was the only child and, single mother. And I was like, I'm going to public school and this is going to help my mom. Lord have mercy.
Well, that was very thoughtful of you as a teenager, honestly, because most teenagers would be like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Yeah, no. So I went to an all Black Catholic school from first grade to 8th grade.
Wow.
Private school. And then from 9th grade to 12th grade, I went to a mixed public school where the population was 60% white, 40% Black. So when you talk about like huge culture shift,
yeah,
it was
and that's
a difficult transition.
And that's how I was able to go to that public school, because I know I didn't want to go to the local public school that I was supposed to go to. So I did what back then they call it a minority to majority transfer.
Mm-hmm.
So basically I had to go across town to another school that did not have.
You had to cross the tracks.
Across the tracks. Basically, yes, it happens all across the country. People who don't know about it, but that was their form of integration into primarily white schools. If you didn't have a population of Black people that was in that school, the only way that you can cross into that school is if there was a majority of whites and not enough Blacks. So they approved me to go outside of my district to go to another school for the sole purpose of integration.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And to think that's even happening at our age, because we're in our 40s. But you think that's a story that your parents tell. I've heard my father talk about that story before. He was one of the first, or he was in the first group of people to integrate his school. And so just to think that that's happening in the next generation after them is still mind blowing to me. But yeah, huge
For sure.
shift there. So, you know, having that very strict upbringing in a private school Christian setting, you know, like you said, you're taught to be a people pleaser. If you don't behave the way that you're supposed to, like you said, you get paddled. So what does that tell you? Okay, so I need to behave the way this person wants me to be, right? I need to respond the way this person wants me to respond. And that causes us to be afraid as adults. It's amazing the stuff that we take from our childhood into adulthood and don't even realize how it affects our lives, right? So now we're taught as adults, don't speak your voice, don't say how you feel, do what other people want you to do to be accepted and to be loved, right? And so now that journey to becoming, not even becoming, because you are already your authentic self, but tapping into that, you have to unlearn all the other stuff, the toxic stuff, because people pleasing is a toxic behavior. All that toxic stuff that you were taught growing up. And it's a process.
It most definitely is. And it's also having those experiences has led me to the point to where I keep talking about it and I keep talking about it till it happens, but I'm writing a book and it's called Toxic Ambitions. And it's talking about all the things that we just talked about and people pleasing and perfectionism and how that carries on into your adulthood. And if you don't check it, you're just going to lead down a life of just continuing doing things that really don't serve you well and things that you really don't want to do. And so that's coming soon. I'm going to have you write the foreword. And it seems like that you really have a handle on that.
So you have to become aware that that's happening. That's step number one. That's the biggest hurdles to get over, because a lot of people just accept this is the way that I am. This is just the way that I am.
Yeah.
But what I've started to learn and has been really helpful for me. So was reading a book, still am reading a book. It's called Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty.
Okay. I like him a lot.
Fascinating guy. But in his book, he talks about asking yourself the question, why? Okay. If you find yourself reacting to something in a negative way or a certain way that you don't like, if you find yourself feeling a certain way that you don't like, ask yourself, well, why is that? Why am I feeling that way? And you keep asking yourself, why, until you get down to like the very bottom of it. Right. So let's see if we can find an example. I do something that my husband doesn't like, right? I think it's a good thing. He doesn't really care for it, whatever that may be. I get my feelings hurt. Okay, well, why are your feelings hurt? Well, because I thought I was doing this good thing and I wanted to make him happy and it didn't make him happy. Okay, so why is it so important that you make him happy? Well, because I want him to love me and I want him to accept me. Well, why is that? You know, like you keep asking yourself the question, why? Why do you want to be accepted so badly? And sometimes when I think about it, I'm like, man, you know, I was bullied really badly as a kid. I really was. It's a true story, right? I was the proverbial nerd. I'm talking about thick glasses, braces, bushy hair, the whole nine, right? And I got teased so badly by kids. And all I wanted was to be loved and accepted, because I don't like how it feels when people don't like me. You know, well, why is that? You keep asking yourself the question, why? And really at the bottom of it is, I don't love and accept myself for the way that I am. I need to start loving and accepting myself, right? Because then once you do that, it really doesn't matter if other people accept you or not. Now, I know that sounds like a stretch. Of course, you want your husband to love you. You want your mother to love you, right? But if you don't love yourself and you don't accept yourself, it doesn't matter how much they show you or they tell you that they love you, you still don't feel it.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Doesn't make sense. Listen, I keep telling you, we are spiritual twins, because everything that you're saying that I've experienced, everything that you're saying that I've had to go through myself, my own self-development, my own journey, it's a struggle out there to come to the realization that we are all broken and we have to do things that are going to make us better. And if we ignore them, it's just going to end up in disaster. So I haven't seen you in a while, but I see a totally different Olivia. I'm like, wow.
This is how my mind works. Let's say I live to be 84. I'm already halfway there. What you been doing? Where do you want to be? So 40 will make you put things into perspective. And kids too. Having kids will definitely make you put things into perspective. And what it'll do to what it did to me, it'll call out your negative and toxic behaviors because you don't want to pass that on to your children. So for instance, your kids will let you know. So for instance, my 8-year-old, she gets dressed, she puts on her clothes really quickly, right? Like her pockets are hanging out and, her shirt's halfway up. And so I go up to her and I'm adjusting everything. And she goes, Mommy, why do you want me to be so perfect? And I'm like,
Ooh.
I just want you to be,
Oh,
be so perfect. And so it makes me think, all right, Liz, are your perfectionist tendencies rubbing off on your child? You don't want to pass that on to her. You want her to understand that she is beautiful and whole the way that she is. Now, mind you, you're still not walking outside the house with your pockets hanging outside. We can tuck those in, right? But it helped me to loosen up a little bit because I really was making sure her hair was, pulled smoothly and it was uncomfortable for her. She'd be like, Mommy, this is too tight, So having kids will definitely bring those behaviors to the forefront. And if it's important to you to not pass that on to them, then you will fix that stuff.
For sure. So what has it been like navigating the waters of entrepreneurship and motherhood? I mean, simultaneously doing that and running your own business. What's that experience been like for you?
Just about every other night, I cry into my glass of wine. I am just like, God, send me an angel. It's hard. I'm not even going to lie, especially for me because I'm a very creative, right-brained, kind of go with the flow. Organization is not my strong suit, right? So that's when, as an entrepreneur, you have to really recognize what are your strengths, what are your areas for improvement, and how can I find people to help me fill those gaps, right? Especially when you're a solopreneur, you're by yourself, you're just starting off, and you are expected to wear all the hats. At some point, you have to start realizing that you're not good. Like every hat don't fit you, right?
Right.
And so you have to recognize what those things that you're good at are and what the things that you're not are, and start to outsource the things that you're not to other people wherever you can. So, so doing that has been beneficial because burnout is a real thing, especially when you're trying to navigate the world of being an entrepreneur and a mom. Because my kids are 8 and 4. They're young still. For me, honestly, my husband has been the key to it all because he picks up where I fall off. If there are days when I need to work late or I need to go out of town, he's right there. My mother-in-law has also been very helpful. My mom passed in 2009. And it's just my husband and I here. All of our family lives in other states. So he has really been my rock. There's no way that I could do this the way that I've done it without him. So having that support system is integral, right? So I think it's really important as an entrepreneur and a mom to have a support system. And that support system can come in many different forms. For me, it's my husband and my mother-in-law. So he picks up where I fall off. If he needs to pick up the girls and make dinner, he'll do that. If he needs to, take them out to the park on the weekends so I can get caught up on work, he'll do that. Like he's been absolutely amazing. I'm truly blessed to have a life partner like that. And yeah, just to pick up the slack because honestly, somebody said this to me once and it really hit home. She was like, you know what, Olivia, you can have everything. You can have it all, just not all at the same time. And it's true. I feel like we as women, especially moms, feel that if we're not doing all the things well, we're failing. If I'm not making 6 figures in my business while simultaneously having all the clothes folded and the dinner cooked and the kids are happy and, the husband is taken care of in all the wifely ways he needs to be taken care of, then I'm not doing my job. I'm a failure. And that's not true. That's not humanly possible to do, right? Unless you have all the support in the world. People will look at Beyonce. Beyonce will show you bad days. You know, you
Yeah.
don't see that.
Yeah.
And Beyonce is a billionaire and she has all the support and the nannies and whatever else that she needs, the makeup artists and the hair. Like, we have to stop comparing ourselves to unrealistic expectations of what we see on social media or what we see on TV. Because none of that shit is, I don't know if I could curse on this
True.
podcast. I've been trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
But none of
No, you're good. Go ahead.
that stuff is reality, And so I think
Yeah.
it is important, especially as a mom who's running a business, to accept that there's no such thing as perfection, to accept that we can't do it all at the same time, and to accept that we need help, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah. That part right there.
otherwise we burn. We go into a tailspin. We start feeling like we're not living up to a certain expectation, an unrealistic expectation that we have of ourselves, and it causes us to just quit, right? So I think it's important that you accept that fact first. Hey, listen, I'm not going to be all the things and do all the things at all times, So that's important. But my support system, my husband, my mother-in-law will fly down from Cleveland, Ohio, to come and watch the kids for us. She's helpful. And that's how I'm able to juggle as much as I can at the same time. Now, listen, sometimes one of those balls may hit the ground, and that is what it is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you just got to accept that, and you won't be able to keep everything up in the air at all times. And that's fine. That's not failure. That's life.
Oh, yeah. How has new enlightened Olivia, healing Olivia, how has that transformed your business second time around? Now that you've gone into it second time around, do you feel as though that growth in that journey has helped your business along the way?
Absolutely. So let's see. We left the journey at Aspired and started my own business. So I was 27 years old when I started the business. Never, remember, like I said, talked about wanting to be an entrepreneur, never thought about it. It just happened upon me, right? And so at 27, in the middle of a recession, for one, probably not the best time to start a design business. And number two, not really understanding the business side. I knew the interior design side, but not really understanding the business side of it. I ran into a lot of issues and pitfalls. And honestly, when you don't understand who you are and you don't understand what your values are, so that you have something to stand on, you don't know what to say yes and no to. So you just take it all on, right? You take it all on. Clients that may not fit you or you fit them, projects that may not work for you, or you work for them. And it just becomes, it's not fun.
Yeah.
And then you start to think, oh, well, I'm terrible at this. I'm not good at this. I'm not a business person. I'm an interior designer. These were all the things that I was telling myself at 27 when I didn't know better. Right. And so ultimately, I went back to work, got married, had Maya, and then ultimately went back to work for someone else. And I was embarrassed. I'm not even going to lie.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I didn't make some grand announcement. I just silently walked back into the 9 to 5, working for somebody else. And when people asked me about it, I felt uncomfortable talking about it because at 27, you feel like, all right, I failed at this, right? I had the business for about 4 to 5 years, something like that. And then you think, oh my God, I'm a failure. Like, how am I supposed to go back and tell people after making all these great announcements and posting all of this stuff on Instagram? Instagram wasn't even around at the time. It was Facebook.
Right.
That I have my own business that, like that's embarrassing, especially for perfectionists.
Oh, yeah.
So I managed to put that behind me, went back to work for other people. And in that process, I got some really great experience in construction. So I worked with a few builders at the time, Rock Built Homes being one of them, which is where I won the OB award. I think you called it out at the top of the show. And honestly, that was the experience that really started to help me define who I am as a woman in the world of interior design and construction. Like, who am I in my career? Who do I want to be? And it also put me in a room with a bunch of men, right?
Mm.
Which was good for me because at the time I was this really kind of sensitive, timid, mild mannered sort of person.
Yeah. Okay.
No, you don't agree? Um,
No. Well, actually, I
in
mean,
the workforce, let me say
I,
that.
but to tell you the truth, Olivia, when I think about you as friends then and having conversations with you then versus now, when I said earlier in the show that I can see a different side of you, that is the amazing thing about this show, especially when I go and I speak with people who I know from 10 plus years ago, early on in our entrepreneurship journey, and where you are now. I see somebody different. I see somebody who is confident in what it is that she's doing, and like, no F's are given at this point. This is who I am. I see that. And so I never saw you as really timid, but more quiet.
Probably
But
more
now I
funny.
can see that
It's
you
what it
are.
is. It's fear. It's fear of being who you feel you really are on the inside because you don't know if people are going to receive you, right? But after you've been through so
Exactly.
many bumps and taken so many hits, you start to feel like, all right, shit's gonna happen no matter what. Bad stuff is gonna happen no matter what. So why am I gonna spend my time tiptoeing around people and pretending to be somebody that I'm not if stuff's gonna happen anyway? Might as well move
Exactly.
through this life feeling comfortable in my own skin. And I will say that my time at
Yeah.
Built jump started that because I worked around a lot of men who gave no fucks. Just go put that out there,
Right.
right? And
Oh,
they
yeah.
said how they felt, and I saw how they got their way, right? We're taught as women, don't don't say how you feel, especially Southern women, right? Be polite. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. Thank you, please. All these things, don't speak up, be seen, not heard, blah, 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 right?
Mhm.
And we carry that through our lives. And then we wonder why we don't get what we want because we're not
Come on
telling
now.
people, first of all, we're not clear about what it is that we want. And we're not telling people what we want. But I saw these men walk into these rooms day in and day out, don't care, say how they feel, and get what they want. So I was like, okay, there's something to this. And if you're going to work in construction with a bunch of men, you have to have a thick skin too, right? Because you're not going to
Yeah.
be hurt otherwise.
Well, apparently that is all changing for you. You are taking life by the horn, your career by the horns, navigating and charting your own course, which is amazing. I'm so proud of you. Before we leave, what I want to know from you is, what advice do you have to other young female or male entrepreneurs? I know that you really like to inspire young women.
Mhm.
What would you tell them today, starting out on their journey into either going to corporate America or to entrepreneurship?
I would tell them just have courage to be yourself. And that's what it takes. It takes courage, even if it feels uncomfortable. I was watching a podcast, not a podcast. LeBron has a show, The Shop, I think, on HBO Max. And he was talking
Okay.
about how we have to get to the point where we feel comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Because whenever you feel comfortable, you're never going to want to get to the next level, right?
Mm.
Comfortability means complacency, right? You only grow. Think about it. The only times that you grow and you move to the next level is when you're stretched. And it's uncomfortable to do that. So I would tell them, even in moments where you feel fearful, push through it. Have the courage to push through it. Understand that, okay, I may be a little scared to be who I am. I may be a little scared to take this chance or to take this opportunity because I don't feel like I'm ready, or all the things that we tell ourselves. I don't feel that I'm good enough. It's okay to have those feelings. It's human. Feel those feelings, let them move through you, and do that shit anyway.
Yes.
Because that's what's going to propel you to the next thing in your life. And as a young woman, I was afraid I would get paralyzed by that fear and I would just not do it. I would run in the opposite direction. And so I would tell them, apply that to everything, to being yourself, because it does take a level of courage to look at people and say, this is who I am, whether you like it or not. And opportunities in life too, just push through that fear to get to the other side, because great things, amazing things, the you who you really are is on the other side of that fear. And that's really, to me, the basis of everything. Once you become comfortable in uncertainty, which is hard for me, and comfortable being uncomfortable, then you're good, honestly.
I think you just came up with the title of your book, The Other Side of Fear. You need to go ahead and write that down.
That's the good. Anything worth having is on the other side of fear, really.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, Olivia, it's been an amazing opportunity to catch up with you and talk with you. Thank you. I know you're a busy mom, busy entrepreneur, and for you to take your time to speak with me is priceless. And I thank you. I applaud you to all that you've done and the growth that I've seen, and much success to you. And thank you. That's all I can say.
Thank you. I enjoy talks like this, so hopefully we can do it again.
Most definitely. You have an amazing day, and I will be back in touch with you soon.
You too.